Benjamin West and his cat Grimalkin. We are on chapter 5, The Image of Sally. Weeks went by before Papa saw the picture of Sally. By day he was busy planting Indian corn and pumpkins. By night the guests hovered around him like bees after honey. They hung on his every word, for while Papa was a man of few words, each one counted. By the time he had a moment to spare, there was not only the picture of Sally to show him. There was a whole stack of pictures, done on poplar boards, on birch bark, on anything that would hold a pen stroke or a smudge of charcoal. It was mid-morning of a bright May day when Papa first heard about the pictures. "Benjamin," he called out as he came into the kitchen, bringing the smell of rich black earth with him. "Nanny Ludi has lost a shoe. See if the smith can attend her at once." "Oh, yes, Papa," replied Benjamin quickly. He grinned at the thought that now Sarah or Hannah or Mary or Elizabeth would have to come down from her bed making and take over his job. He was doing a hot and tiresome chore at the time. He was sitting on the hearthstone, turning the crank handle that turned a joint of meat before the fire, and every now and then he had to baste the meat with the brown gravy that dripped into the pan beneath. Grimalkin sat watchful at Benjamin's feet. Memory told him that sometimes the gravy spattered on the hearthstone, and all of the spatters belonged to him. "The sun has great power this morning," Papa remarked. "It is pleasant and cool inside." Cool, thought Benjamin as he wiped the beads of perspiration from his upper lip. Papa sat down at the table. He began sampling the wild strawberries that Mama was putting in a pie. Then, looking as sheepish as a boy, he reached over and scooped up on one finger some of the floating island pudding that stood cooling in a bowl. He smiled up at Mama. "The pudding is exactly to my taste," he observed. "Benjamin," said Mama, "this would be the time to show Papa thy pictures." At the word picture, Papa coughed and sat bolt upright. His hands tightened on his whip handle until the knuckles stood out white and big. His face went redder than the strawberries. He fixed his hat more firmly on his head. "Oh no," thought Benjamin, "how quickly Papa can change." Grimalkin rolled over and over to attract attention, but Papa took less notice of him than if he had been a fly. "Ho, look at Grimalkin," laughed Benjamin nervously. A heavy silence was the only answer. Slowly, Benjamin got up and walked over to the pine dresser. If only John or Thomas or Samuel or Joseph would come to get Papa. But door latch in was as still as a meeting house. Only the hens clucked beneath the windows. With trembling hands, Benjamin took the stack of pictures from the bottom drawer of the dresser. He handed Papa the one of Sally. It was as if Papa hated even to touch it. Gingerly, he laid it on his lap. He reached into his pocket and took out his square-rimmed spectacles. Slowly, he adjusted them under his beetling brows. Then he brought the picture up close. For a long moment, he said nothing. Grimalkin lowered his tail at the awful stillness. Mama's spoon dropped out of her hand with a loud clatter. Finally, Papa placed the drawing on the table. "The image of Sally should be carried in our hearts," he said, as he looked up over the rims of his spectacles, "not on a piece of paper. Pictures fade, memories remain green forever." "Green!" shouted Benjamin. "How I long to put green into my pictures. I tried to draw a hummer-bird yesterday as he dipped his beak into a flower. I wanted to paint his shiny green head, but all I had was red and black ink." Papa shook his head as he looked at the pictures of red-headed woodpeckers and swamp roses and bushes with scarlet berries. "It would be better to study cabbages and turnips, or even gooseberries," he said with a sniff. "These are gay and gaudy. Pride in pictures shows a worldly spirit." "But Papa, I am not proud of these pictures. I aim to do better, much better, if only I had more colors." At this, Papa gave up. Tell me, why is it that thee must draw? He asked. Now Benjamin was at a loss. How could he explain the need for putting things on paper? How could he explain that? Was it that Sally's smile is fleeting and thee wished to hold it? Asked Mama. That's it, Mama, that's it. The hummingbird, too, is gone in winter, yet I could capture him on paper. Now Grimalkin stretched his muscles and looked up at Papa as if he wished to add a few remarks. First he uttered a little sneeze to attract attention, as people sometimes clear their throats. Then he started talking. Yow, meow, meow. Louder and louder he talked until finally he flung back his head and opened his mouth so wide it showed all the black ridges inside. Papa sat silent and thoughtful for a moment. Then his eyes twinkled. Grimalkin is right, he said. To preserve good actions on paper can do no harm. Benjamin is but a lad, Mama. He will outgrow this. Then turning to Benjamin, he said, Thee may continue with thy drawing, if it does not interfere with chores. Benjamin wanted to scoop Grimalkin up in his arms and dance in circles like a whirl beetle. He wanted to toss Papa's hat to the sky. He wanted to hug Papa until they both gasped for breath. But all he said was, Thank thee, Papa. Now I shall see about Nanny Ludy's shoes. And he frisked Grimalkin's whiskers for pure joy.